Seen enough of that? Wow, it's gotta be the strangest thing I've ever seen. I hear that.
Just got this in last night.
All right, listen up. The students that have been coming up to work the resort on this side of the lake have been disappearing right and left.
Local authorities didn't have a clue until our surveillance teams tapped into the winery house right there and taped everything you just saw.
What about the cameras and the traps?
Probably security.
What?
We suspect they're using the winery house as a cover, and they're getting anyone who stumbles onto their scheme, whatever that is.
Mike. This is Kelly.
Kid.
Come on, isn't she a little young?
She's young. She's one of our best.
She'll also be working inside. And remember, no one goes in until we get the signal from her.
I want to know more about these traps.
Yeah.
That's one thing we've got going for us.
How's that?
One of our guys put an override on the camera cable unit here in the back hallway.
Which means?
Which means we have complete control of the cameras and the traps.
But who operates that?
They do.
And who's that?
I'm not exactly certain. Special operators from Control. But we gotta work together on this one. Any questions?
Let's rock and roll. Let's do it.
Be careful out there, huh? And you keep your eyes open. We're all depending on you, especially Kelly. She should be there now. I'll switch you over. And good luck.
Hello and welcome to another episode. Today I want to talk about Night Trap. So Night Trap is the infamous game from the early 90s. I want to say like 93, 92, 93, 94, that era. It was one of the games that was cited in the big, video game violence debate. Joseph Lieberman loved to use this game as an example of just how bad video games are for kids and stuff. It was that and Mortal Kombat. And Night Trap is an incredibly tame game, especially in today's climate, but it was pretty edgy at the time that it came out. And there's one guy out there, I believe he's part of his company is called Screaming Villains, and he spent the last couple years remastering Night Trap. So what is Night Trap? Night Trap is a really interesting, weird game. It is an FMV game, which stands for full motion video, where you basically have to trap these creatures in this house and save these people from getting attacked, and they're called augurs. The reason behind them being called augurs is because at the time of this game being created, they didn't want to garnish too much attention by making it too violent, so they didn't want to call them vampires, even though they are vampires. And the reason behind this was simple. So they're called augurs. They kind of look like weird ninjas, but they walk really slow, like almost like turtle-like. It's really weird. The game itself, it's not a great game. It's not, I would even call it, it's an enjoyable experience, and I feel it's an experience any gamer should have because it's an important piece of video game history. But I wouldn't sit here and say, hey, I'm gonna play Night Trap on hours on end or anything like that. Like, it is a game that is on purpose very, very cheesy, and that's exactly what the game is. The game starts out, there's a group of people that work at this command center. They kind of go through the room, say like, hey, here's our mission, and then they point at Control, which is you, and they say, well, the people at Control are in charge of this house. So there are 8 cameras in this house, and you have to choose between the different cameras. You have to match up a different color code, and then you have to trap the augers by pressing 1 or 2 buttons, and different traps go off, and it sets them up, and you capture them, you know. But the problem is the game gets increasingly difficult incredibly fast, and the other issue I have with this game is you have to rely on the dialogue between the different people in this house, because obviously there's good people here and there's bad people that are doing some nefarious stuff, and you have to kind of search between the scenes while you're trying to go into different rooms and trap these augers. You also have to pay attention to the events that are unfolding in other parts of the house, and you have to listen to their conversation to change the access code, which is the color, to the correct color to continue to trap these creatures, because if you don't, then the traps don't work. That part of the game is incredibly frustrating because you have to constantly be changing these cameras, and for somebody like me, like, I kind of just want to see the story, you know? And a lot of times it's because you're changing between 8 different cameras, it's like you're constantly changing the channels on a television when you're trying to watch one show. And that's why this game is kind of annoying for that. I wish it was presented a little bit better, in a way where it's like, hey, you watch this scene, then you're running around trapping augers. Now you watch another scene, and that's not what it is. I get it was a revolutionary game at the time of its release, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad game, but it's not a very good one. But it's very important in terms of video game history, and I know it means a lot to a lot of the people that grew up at that time. Now, me personally, I don't have a backstory history with this game because I wasn't a Sega kid, I was a Nintendo kid. So I didn't have a Sega CD when this game came out. Obviously I didn't have a 3DO or any of the other weird machines that this game came out on. And so I don't have the history or the revenance for it that a lot of people do. But I think it's, for $15, that's how much it costs if you buy it digitally. I think it's worth your time. Just to see a piece of cheesy video game history that was, you know, once considered the equivalent of an NC-17 movie, and you go and play it now, and it's about as tame as any PG movie you can watch. So nothing crazy happens in it, but it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting game. I enjoy it for what it is, but it's not perfect and it's not good, but it's not bad. You know, it's okay. So, but for 15 bucks, it is what it is. The other brief thing I want to mention on this video is I tried to get a physical copy of it from Limited Run Games, and I've purchased stuff from Limited Run Games in the past. I bought a copy of Rainbow Moon from Limited Run Games about this time a year ago, and right now I currently am in the process of waiting for my copy of Wonder Boy: The Dragon's Trap to show up. Fortunately, I don't know, like, I knew Night Trap was going to be a big, huge thing because people have a hard reverence for this game compared to something like Wonder Boy or Rainbow Moon, who really knows about that game. And the problem is I had my game in my cart and I waited for, you know, this happened to me twice. I waited, you get to the point where you have to wait, you know, a couple minutes for you to get to your process, and both times they just took my game out of the cart and said it was sold out. So that was a really disappointing aspect. I don't want to rag on Limited Run Games because I think they're a good company that is doing a really cool service for gamers, and I really like and appreciate what they're doing. You know, they're keeping the Vita alive on top of making physical copies of games that probably wouldn't get physical copies otherwise. And being a physical copy guy, as you can see, I really do appreciate that. So, but that part of it was disappointing. So I don't have a physical copy to hold up in my hand and show you guys, but you can buy it digitally on the PlayStation Store or on the Xbox Store for $15. Like, you can even get it on Steam for the same price. So it's an interesting game. It's a piece of gaming history that I think is important for gamers to play and experience at least once, and for 15 bucks, that's fine. So, but just don't go into it expecting the best game you've ever played or anything like that. So anyways, guys, until next time.